Hello, it's Larry Clark with another Meet the Composer episode, and today we're talking to Amy Riebs Mills, and we also have educator Kathryn Buchanan, who's going to ask the questions today. So Kathryn, take it away and I'll ask all those burning questions you want to know.
Okay. Dr. Mills, and we know each other as Amy. I'm so excited to be with you today.
I'm so glad you could do this.
Yeah, and you and I.
I've been to your school. I've worked with your groups. You're a terrific educator, and so I'm just thank you for doing this for us today too.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for all of your helps. And my students definitely love when you come in. They're excited, and they feel like they have somebody really famous coming in to speak with them. So, and a lot of your helps have been very helpful to us. So I do thank you for that. So what things I know about you, that you were in the Air Force and you directed the Air Force Band for so many years. You were also an educator, and we just have a ton of questions that our kids would like to know about a composer and about your life as a composer. So where did you go to college?
I went to Northwestern University. And the reason I chose that school was because when I was a senior in high school and had to make those decisions, I loved music. I loved being a musician, but my family was not a professional music family. So I didn't see any career in that as an example of my own family. So I thought, I like music. I'm going to go to Northwestern, which is a big university, and I'll have fun with music for a couple of years. And then when I decide what I really want to do, I'll switch in the same university, and I can still go to the same school when I figure out what I really want to do. And by the time I got to Northwestern and started taking class, it was like, oh, I love this. And I started in music and I never got out.
That's wonderful. And you know, what's so interesting about us is that we have a similar background, we grew up in a similar area of the country. You in the Midwest, I was in Minnesota and you were in Wisconsin. And so that's, I think, what makes us, connect so well. But same thing with me, I found music and it became my friend, my very best friend, but I didn't see a career in it. So good. I'm excited to hear more how the composer piece came into it. So what instrument did you play when you were growing up, going through music?
I don't remember, but my mother says that I always wanted to play the piano as soon as I could talk. So so I started on piano real young, but not too young. Actually, well, the truth is, my mom started me on piano lessons when I was 5. And after about 3 lessons, I remember I was so mad at that lady because all she wanted to know, now I remember now, she wanted to know treble clef. And I was like, I really don't care what that is. I just want to play the piano. And I was obviously not really ready, and I quit. So I quit piano at 5. But my mom started me again at 2nd grade, and I was more prepared. And then, so I started piano in 2nd grade, and then I started clarinet. Back in the day, we started band instruments in 5th grade. So I started clarinet in 5th grade, and I don't know, but I just knew I had to play clarinet. I don't know why. And then I went to Girl Scout camp, and I loved when they played guitars and sang. And my dad had a guitar, and he played a little bit. So so I started guitar in 6th grade, and those were my main instruments. And the funny thing is, I had chosen the clarinet as a melody line instrument, the guitar as a harmony instrument, and the piano as an instrument where you have to balance voices between melody and bass and inner voices. So it was like God just led me on that because I was clueless. I just put in my heart what I was supposed to keep playing, and I just kept doing it because I loved it so much.
That's awesome. So I think our listeners feel the same way. They just would rather just play something. They don't care, what note is on the first space, right? And, those are the integral things to composing. But my kids will say to me, I don't care. I just want to play Harry Potter theme or,
right.
So that's a good way to begin, I guess, just having that desire to want to play melody.
Yeah. Right. And then the thing is, you go from the desire to play music and to play a melody or something that we know, and then you hit this wall where, oh, it's not so easy. And you have to get past that wall with your practicing, with your lessons, with your ensembles in school and all that stuff. And when you get past that wall, then you get a freedom where you really have skills, and then you can really play what you want, and it gets really cool.
Yes, excellent. So what instrument fascinates you the most when you listen to it? I mean, you may not play it, but is there an instrument that fascinates you more than any other? When you hear, you've obviously heard the full ensemble, you've directed bands and full orchestras where you have the whole thing from flutes all the way down to the baritones.
That is a really hard answer, and I'm going to give you two. One answer is whatever I'm writing for today, I'm fascinated by that. And then like, so it's constantly switches from what I'm writing for. But if I had to choose one medium, I would take everything you have. I love like Carmina Burana, where you have a 250 voice chorus. You've got the woodwinds, the brass, the strings, the percussion, and it's just incredible. So I guess I like everything all together.
Okay, that would be great. That would be neat. Maybe we should plan that in the future. Yeah. So did you always want to be a composer? And you did sort of answer that, what age you started that inspired you. Mozart started when he was 6. So did you feel like you started that early, or did it come to being later?
Not so much. I don't remember. I wasn't writing when I was real young. And when I had guitar and was singing songs, I wrote some songs with guitar, and that was fun. I won't go into detail on that. But, and then in high school, I did some arranging, which I really liked, but I wasn't really doing original compositions very much. Because by the time I got to high school, my heart's desire became to be a conductor. And that's really what I pursued. And so that's why I learned to play all the instruments in the band and the orchestra, so I could learn to conduct and be an effective conductor. And it was a desire of my heart, burning desire, had to be a conductor for like 30 years, which is like twice as long as most of our viewers have been alive. but after 30 years, and I loved it, and I still love it, it was like God changed the desire of my heart. And I started feeling like I'd really like to write. And so I thought, okay, I'll give that a try. And that was like 10 years ago. So I was, let's say in my mid 50s, when I really said, okay, I'm going to sit down and really do this. So I came to serious composition after 30 years of intensive score study of the great masters. And then I sat down and started trying to write. And you know what? It's not as easy as it looks.
Well, that brings me to my next question. So is there a certain composer who's inspired you to write?
I think there are certain composers whose music I really love. I mean, I love them all, but I really love Prokofiev. I love the rhythm of Prokofiev and then the power in his music. So I like his stuff. I like Aaron Copland a lot. I love how he took folk songs and writes beautiful music and also really dynamic rhythmic music. And I like perfect fourths and perfect fifths, which we don't hear much before 1900. So I think those are two 20th century composers who I really like. But I love them all. I love Mozart, whose music is so delicate and transparent. So I like everything from that to the thickness and power of Prokofiev. So I sort of just like it all.
Yeah, neat. Okay. How about any professors or teachers as you were growing up that inspired you? Can you name one, or can you look back and see a specific person that inspired you to write?
Yeah, I think every step of the way there was somebody, and I think it's a really important point because music, whether you're a composer or a composer or a conductor or an instrumentalist or a singer or any of those things, or an engineer or any of the things that you would do in music, it is an apprenticeship profession. We were all apprentices to our master teachers. And those of you who are in school, you need to look, middle schoolers, high schoolers, you need to look at your middle school band director, orchestra director, choir teacher, any of those people who are teaching you. They are masters at what they do. They are master teachers, and you are the apprentice there to learn. Because in music, as you all know, students who are already in music already know this, you can read about music all you want, but there's nothing like the teacher saying, play it like this, sing it like this. You can even on YouTube, you can watch, but if you have one-on-one, that master teacher saying, looking at you and what you're doing and saying, oh, just do it like this. And you go, wow, I got it. So I was talking to my goddaughter just the other day about Mozart. She's starting the Mozart C major sonata. And she was asking, well, there are no crescendos or decrescendos in this music. And I said, it's not written in, but would you want to play it? Ba, 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 da, da. Or do you want to play ba, dee, da, dee, da, da, da. There's a little crescendo, a little decrescendo that's not written. And I said to her, that you are my apprentice, I am the master. I just gave you something about musical expression. Now you know. And 10, 20 years from now, you're going to pass that on to the next person. And that's been going on since the 1500s, actually, probably since the beginning of music. So what are we talking about? Oh, did I have anything inspired for you?
I definitely agree.
Yeah, my high school band director really inspired me, encouraged me to go to music school in college. My college band director, John P. Painter, some of you out there might have heard of him, the teachers might have heard him, was a real big inspiration for me. My greatest conducting mentor was Harold Farberman. I got my doctorate in conducting, and then I went to New York City once a month for a 1-hour lesson with Harold Farberman, where he beat me up as a conductor for an hour. But he really, I had my doctorate already, and I was still going to the feet of the master and learning. And then as a composer, when I got started, I knew, yeah, I can't do this myself. So I approached a friend of mine, Marshall LaRue, who is a brilliant genius composer, who looks through myself and helps me. We talk through it, and we craft and that kind of thing. So it's my whole life I've always been an apprentice.
And I think that's what makes a great composer, a great musician, is somebody who reaches out for help. I know for myself the same thing. I just didn't want to stay the same. I wanted to have somebody help me grow as a musician and as a conductor and a teacher. So yeah, definitely we get those things from those that we study under.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the next question, what means do you use to write? For instance, do you start with a melody? Can you explain your process in writing?
That's interesting. As a composer, and remember, I've really only been seriously composing for 10 years, which is not a long time as a composer, but the first 5, 6, 7 years, I had to figure out what my process was. And I have figured it out, which is a really good thing, because I kept talking to my master mentor and saying, this is taking so long. Why does it take so long to do this? Well, in the first place, it takes a long time to write all those notes. But we talked about it. And so what I do now is usually I look for my inspiration, which is usually whoever has commissioned me to write the music. I usually do an interview with them, and we just talk about, who are you? What do you love about music? What do you want from this piece? Do you have any ideas? That kind of thing. And it usually comes into some kind of an idea that I'm focused on. And then I look at the idea, and then we also need guidelines. I need to know, how long do you want the piece to be? Give me a 2-minute time range. I can, say 10 to 12 minutes. I'll hit somewhere in the middle of that. Do you want one long piece? Do you want, 3 short movements? So we have to talk about that kind of stuff and get those basics done. And then I start thinking, okay, let's say I want to do the beginning fast and the middle kind of slow and pretty and the end fast. So now I'm starting to talk about form and structure. I haven't talked about notes at all. So fast, slow, fast, so okay, that's good. Now, how do we want to leave our audience? Do we want to leave them at peace, or do we want to stand up and cheer? Yay! Okay, now I know how I want my end to feel. And so and then I've got, let's say I've got 10 minutes. Well, then I can do 3 minutes at the beginning, 4 in the middle, and 3 minutes. So I do my structure. I haven't talked about notes at all yet. And then I take a piece of paper and I write all that stuff down. And then I can't help it, but while I'm not doing notes, in the back of my head, things are kind of mulling around. And I think about, I want this melody to be really jagged, or I want this melody to be smooth, or I want, so I think about the qualities I want, and I get all of that, and I write it down on paper. And even for the teachers who are interested in theory, I often sketch out the key centers. What key are they? If it's a band, it's probably going to be a flat key. If it's an orchestra, it'll be a sharp key. If it's for piano, maybe not too many sharps or flats. All those things. So I sketch all that out until I'm just bursting. I say, finally, okay, good, I can write a melody. And so I usually start with melodies, and then the hardest thing to write is the transitions. How do we get from the fast to the slow section? And that's where I rely on harmony. I usually write harmonies first in the transitions, and then I'll take little bits of melody from other places and stick it in there and make the transitions work. So that's kind of how I do it. And it's something I've arrived at, and it works for me. And once I have my form figured out, then I don't get to like minute number 10 and go, oh my gosh, I need to start the fast section. I've only got 30 seconds left. So planning. Yes.
So that sort of answers, but how do you keep an idea in your head without getting sidetracked? I know it's a long process. We're talking weeks, possibly months on a piece. So
yes, months. As the piece I wrote for Excelsior is called Arise, and it's for grade 1. So so there's not a lot of complexity in the piece. It still took me a full month from beginning the piece to writing the piece. Sent it to Larry Clark. He was saying, oh, you better not put a key change in there. Oops, okay. So we changed some things around, got it done. It took a full month to write a 90-second grade 1 band piece. So wow. It does take a long time to do. And so when I get an idea in my head, I've learned to not be too crazy about it. Oh my God, I got to write this down before I forget it. I go, too stressful. I write music when I'm in my office. I have my piano, my finale. I'm ready to roll, and I'm going to play things around and write it down right now. And other than that, the only other time if I'm somewhere and I think of something and I got to remember, it's like if I figured out how to make a transition work from mulling it over, it's like, then I'll run back and go right down. But for the most part, I make myself write when I'm writing, and the rest of it I can just enjoy in my head and trust myself. I'll think of something good when I sit down to write. So that's what I do.
My band director colleague is excited to try your piece Arise. And so I'll be really excited once his students watch our video, and hopefully they'll be able to try the piece by our famous composer right here.
Thank you.
So, and we were talking about that earlier too, and this kind of goes along with the question, how would you approach, or how would you have a teacher approach your piece? How would you have the students approach your piece when you're first learning a new piece? How do you recommend to start?
I think I would suggest they sort of approach it like I approach the composition of it. And again, as 30 years as a conductor, I learned, don't start with measure 1 and start listening to how does this go. I wouldn't do that. I would take the whole score. I'd flip to measure 1 and glance at it and go, okay, obviously we know, is this for band, is this for orchestra, is this for choir and piano, whatever it's for. So we know who it's for, glance at the key, oh, that's gonna be a hard key, or oh, we can play that key, whatever. And you look at the music, a lot of notes, this is gonna take some time. Oh, that doesn't look too hard. I'll check back, and I flip through pages and go, oh, look at it, double bar line, big thing at the top, there's a change here, okay, there's a new section coming up. And then I'll, I flip the, oh, lots of notes, oh, not many notes, okay, a fermata, there must be a section ending there, okay, moving through to the end. I always want to see how it ends. Oh, it's gonna be beautiful at the end, it's gonna just fade away, or it ends that beautiful major chord, or wow, fortissimo, crescendo, lots of percussion, this is going to be big. So I just kind of glance at all that stuff first. And then having had a grip on it, I might, then start and find the melody line, like there'll be a little intro, but find your first main melody, flip to that middle section, find a little melody in the middle. So kind of dabble through it as the conductor. And then once you're kind of getting the sense of the piece, then really sit down and learn the piece. But I found that dabbling through it helps me get things kind of in focus before I try to intake all the notes into my head. So,
Right.
And for the students, same thing. And it may be the day that your conductor puts it on your music stand, or you walk into the rehearsal room. Hey, there's new music on my music stand. We've got 3 minutes to warm up, and before we get started. Same thing. Look at page 1. Oh my gosh, a lot of notes. It's gonna take the practice. Or this isn't gonna be so hard. What key is that in? Be sure I don't mess up my key signature. Turn the page. Wow, look at that ending. It's gonna be loud. Or look at pianist. Or man, I have 16 bars rest in the middle of this. I wonder what's going on there. So do that overview, and then go back to the beginning and look at the tempo and just kind of start. If you can't play through it right away because people are getting ready, just look through it, think through your fingerings. Is it high? Is it low? Is this going to be a chop buster, or is this going to be easy? I mean, so peruse all that, and then you start sight reading.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, as an educator, sometimes it's the title that makes me want to try a piece. Something as shallow as that. I'll look at my shelf, or I'll look through the catalog. And I know Larry, I would love for him to hear his answer to this too. But do you name your child before you have it, or do you do you name the piece first, or do you compose it and then name it?
I've done it in all different ways. Like you said, sometimes based on the inspiration of the piece, I know what the title is from the beginning. Sometimes, like with Arise, I knew the sense and I knew the message, but I didn't know the title yet. And that's something I mull around in the back of my head when I'm not sitting at my desk working, and so Arise was something that it took a long time and a lot of thinking to think of Arise. And then another piece that I just wrote where the inspiration was very specific, the title was very important, I just wasn't nailing the title. I literally sent an email to my brothers, my sister, and the most creative people I know and say, hey guys, here's what the music is like. Can you send me some ideas? And sometimes there's one of my friends, Shelley Waite, brilliant mezzo soprano. She's given me 2 titles that I've used. She's really good at this. But anyhow, all the ideas I have help me, form and shift and shape. And sometimes it helps me to find that title, or I'll go, that's it, whatever. So titles are really hard. It's one of the hardest things.
Well, from a conductor's point of view, so to all my colleagues out there, I had a colleague say to me, there are 2 rules to learning a piece of music: never sight read a score, and never sight read a score.
Very smart. Yeah, very wise.
So what was it like submitting your piece for the first time? The first piece that you ever submitted, what was it like?
Well, it's so interesting. All right, I had been composing 8 years by then, and I had several pieces that were quite successful that I self-published, and my music can be found at Subito Music Publishing. You go, my screen's gone. I wanted to show you my website, amymillsmusic.com. And from the website, you can click and you can go straight to Subito Music Distribution, and that's where you can order and purchase my music, except for the things that I have at Excelsior. So I've always self-published, but when I decided I wanted to try writing some music for schools, I knew that I needed a publisher who could help get the word about my music out there. And so I approached Excelsior Music, because I knew they were one of the best up-and-coming music publishers in the nation based on the founder and how they do their things. So what I did was I wrote, Dear Mr. Larry Clark, Dear Mr. Clark, My name is Amy Mills. I'm a composer. Here are the 10 best pieces I've ever written. I hope you'll consider me to, write for your publishing company. And I was really nervous and I sent it off and I waited weeks and nothing, no response. I thought, well, this is what they say. They happen all the time now. And so, well, I went back to the Excelsior website and I read and I looked really carefully and went, aha, there was a blog that Larry Clark wrote saying how to approach a publisher, based on my experience. And I'm not kidding. You can see this on their website. If you find their thing about how to submit something, it says, most composers will send to us all the great music they've ever written when what we really want to see is an example of your grade 1 piece for band. I went, oh, I did exactly that. So I said, okay. So I sat down. I spent my first 3 weeks writing my grade 1 piece for band. And they had on the website, here's your guidelines. These are the notes you can use. These are the rhythms you can use for grade 1. And so I read the guidelines, and it's way harder to write grade 1 than you think. But I got something I liked, and I put it in an email. I said, dear Mr. Larry Clark, in my first submission, I did exactly what you said. I sent you all my great music. However, I found your blog. Here is my first submission of a grade 1 band piece. I hope you're interested. And Kathy, the next day, bam, I got an email the next day from Larry Clark saying, hey, I like your piece. I think we could do some work on it, but I'm interested. And we started working together at that point. So, but when I got that email back and he said yes, I was like, woohoo! I was jumping for joy. So I was going, I'm going to be published. I'm going to be published, by somebody other than me.
Right.
Yeah. So, so I'm really excited.
So for those interested in becoming a composer, what would be the most important advice that you could give somebody?
Okay, couple of things. Number 1, learn your musical craft really well as a performer. Whether you're a singer, a piano player, a violin player, a trumpet player, guitar player, whatever you play, get really, really good at it. Because when you get really good at it, then you'll start learning those musical nuances, the intricacies of a master performer that you can use in your composition later. So number 1, play whatever you play or sing whatever you sing really, really well. Number 2, take piano lessons. It's going to save you so much time in the long run to be able to play your scores a little bit, to demo to people, to write down, to play. You don't have to become a great concert pianist, but definitely take piano lessons. Those are skills that you're going to need. Number 3, if you're interested in writing instrumental music at all, start different instruments. You want something from the woodwind family, something from the brass family, something from the strings family, and take voice lessons so that you understand what singers need to do. And when you're writing for a singer, so you don't blow out their chops because you wrote their high A or whatever. So you can start understanding the technical limitations and opportunities of different instruments. Play something in every instrument family, then go to college and you'll learn more. But those are my suggestions.
Great advice, and all of those things you've taken on yourself. You've been learning cello, and that's the you're writing.
I had talking about inspiration. I have an opportunity, a commission from SAI, which is a commission. They said, write whatever you want for whatever you want. I'm like, okay. And so I thought about it. I decided I'm going to write my first string quartet. And I've written for strings before. I have a bunch of orchestra pieces and everything, but I thought I need to understand those cellos better. So I called my friend Kathy and said, hey, would you give me cello lessons? So I'm at home going, do, re, mi, So I have the highest regard for string players. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so I'm still learning.
That's wonderful. So I think I have just one more question. And this is just for the fun of it. Do you feel famous? Because I know I'm excited to be sitting next to
Aw,
you, talking to you and learning from you. So, and are there any perks to being a composer? So do you feel famous and are there any perks?
okay. Do I feel famous? Mostly I'm, you know, it's it's a really good time to be at home because as a composer, I work at home. I work at home really, really, really hard, really long days for months and months and months. And then like I get to go to a premiere. It's like, a burst of opportunity to see musicians and meet people and that kind of stuff. So on a daily basis, I don't feel famous. I just feel like I'm working really hard, but I love writing music. That's what I'm called to do. So I'm doing that. But it's wonderful when I walk somewhere and somebody goes, "You're Amy Mills. You wrote such and such," and I go, "Yeah." So that's really cool. So I don't feel famous, but it's really wonderful to meet the people who have been playing my music. And what was the other question?
Oh, well, are there any perks? So do you have your own private jet or that sort of thing?
Let's see.
Are you a
No,
starving composer?
no. Praise God for the United States Air Force because I retired as a reservist, and that's giving enough income to warrant spending all my time composing. And I have a wonderful, very patient and understanding husband. So between the two of us, we're making it all work. But the perk of being the composer. Okay, here's a perk. You know, when you're studying your music as a classically trained musician, for example. I mean, not the jazzers who can improvise, but the people whose job is to take the notes on the page and bring them to life, hopefully in a way that the composer would enjoy. I mean, I love creativity and flexibility and all the musical nuances, but I really expect people to play the notes I wrote, and play them correctly. So when I'm composing, I get to a spot and go, ah, I wish that spot would be just a little more of this. I go, hey, I'm a composer. I can do that. Like especially when pieces are almost done, I'm listening to things doing and going, boy, if I just a little more here, hey, I'm a composer. I can do that. So it's fun to have that kind of creative control. But then when I give it over to the ensembles who are going to do it, then I just hope that they enjoy it. And it's amazing to hear how people interpret my music in their own ways, in ways I never would have thought. And that's where the creativity on that side is. So, it's all fun. It's all awesome.
Yeah, well, which brings us to Excelsior Music. Music that inspires is their logo, and I would definitely say that that's something that we aspire to do, is to inspire our students and want them to play their instrument to the best that they can.
Exactly. Play your music and make it music that inspires as you're playing it.
Yeah.
That,
Here's Larry.
that was awesome.
I was wondering if you were there. I was like, please come save us.
Oh,
We're done. Save us.
I think I want to come hang out with you too more often.
We're here in rural Virginia where it's relatively safe.
So, yeah, well, that's a good thing. Well, that was great, and I know that students and teachers are going to enjoy that, and we're excited to have Amy's music, and we want more. We want more. So
It's coming. Grade 3. Yep, it's coming.
And Kathryn, thank you for doing this interview. We appreciate it greatly, and I hope your students get something out of it. And I know a lot of students and teachers elsewhere are as well. So I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
So this is going to be on the Excelsior website under Meet the Composer interviews or something like that.
Yes, but it will also be on YouTube, and because it's just easier that way. And so there'll be a link. I'll send you both the link in an email, and it'll also be on the Excelsior website where all of them are. We have 12 now, so this will be number 13.
Yay!
And I have another one this afternoon with Valerie Laney Rowe. I have one tomorrow with another Michael Miller tomorrow. So we're just going to keep doing them and giving teachers an opportunity to have some materials for their students during this terribly difficult time.
Yeah, Larry, I'm so glad you're doing this. I'm so happy to have some sense of being able to do something.
Do something. That's exactly, yeah. We're trying to do something, because we have time right now. We're all at home, and and trying to stay safe and healthy. So that's the important thing.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. We'll see you
Thank
later.
you.
Take care. Send more music, Amy, when it's
All
time.
right.
Take care,
Thanks.
everyone.